Art is the reshaping of reality by man to present it in an understandable way. As the artist recreates the world around him, it is shaped by how he sees it and what he believes in. The Indian artist did not attempt to depict only the material reality around him. He wished to share the complete experience of the moment, not just the photographic presentation of the shapes around him. Beauty for the Indian artist has been a reflection of the glory of God. In fact, for the ancient artist, the experience of beauty, the ecstasy on seeing nature or art which is truly beautiful, has been considered as akin to Brahmanand or the final bliss. Join us on this journey into the heart of the Indian tradition of painting. Come with us to the gorge of the Vaghora river, where Ajanta was created, to the courts of the Mughals and the Deccani Sultans. Journey with us through the deserts of Rajasthan and the icy lands of Ladakh and Lahaul Spiti. In the verdant south and in the gentle hills of the north, experience the compassionate view of life that is enshrined in Indian painting.
There is a deep sense of spirituality which pervades the art of ancient India. The artist looks at the beauty of the world around him, and yet he looks beyond. He is filled with a sense of the underlying harmony in the whole of creation, and he brings to us a sense of great peace of the spirit. The most sublime paintings of India flowered in the Deccan, in the Sahyadri hills in the gorge of the Vaghora river. These paintings take us far from the concerns of the material world to present us a view of life which is filled with compassion. On the painted walls of these caves, we see bodhisattvas, the seekers of truth, gentle beings who look within. These paintings bring us the deep essence of beauty and an all-pervading sense of the harmony of life. The paintings of Ajanta are the only large surviving body of the great paintings in India of that period. Till today, they are a sublime reminder of the ecstasy which the greatest art can bring to us. These paintings are a deep fount which has provided inspiration and nourishment to artists over the centuries. The paintings of Ajanta awaken us to the joy of life and help us to see life as a marvelous experience of love and the giving of oneself. With the coming of the medieval period, the spirit of bhakti swept through the Deccan. This was the cult of a very personal love of God. As in the ancient philosophy which is enshrined in the paintings of Ajanta, the bhakti cult also saw the whole world as a manifestation of the beauty of God. This again was a philosophy which saw the appreciation of beauty as a great and transforming experience which brought one closer to all of creation. The end of the 15th century saw the establishment of 5 Deccani kingdoms of Ahmednagar, Bijapur, Golconda, Bidar and Berar. The Sultan of Bijapur was a descendant of the Ottoman dynasty of Istanbul. The Sultan of Golconda was a Turkman prince who had taken refuge in India. The sultans were followers of the Shia sect of Islam and were close allies of the Safavid rulers of Iran. The sultans of the Deccan and the Safavids of Iran remained constant adversaries of the Sunni Mughal rulers in northern India. A distinct culture developed in the cosmopolitan community of the Deccan. The Deccan had long-standing trade links with the Arab world. Now, with the bond of the shared Shia faith between the rulers of the Deccan and Persia, there was a greater interaction between these regions. The streets of the Deccanese sultanates were filled with Turks, Persians, Arabs, and Africans. In India, the Deccan became the greatest center of Arabic learning and literature. The deeply philosophic Sufis who came here from Persia met a fertile ground for their ideas to flower. It was a heady mixture. The divine grace of the ancient culture, as seen at Ajanta, the ecstasy of the Bhakti movement, and the mystical dreams of the Sufis of Persia. The result was a school of painting, which is one of the greatest ever. A school of painting which presents us with the beautiful world around, yet constantly lifts our souls to the divine above. The kingdoms of Ahmednagar, Bijapur, and Golconda became centers of marvelous painting in the 16th century. 100 years of painting during the 16th and 17th centuries shone like a brilliant star on the horizon of Indian art and left an indelible impression on the history of painting.
There were no studies of Deccan history. Now things have been put in chronological order. So also the history of Indian painting in the Deccan, now you can very clearly define Bijapuri painting, Ahmednagar painting or Golconda painting, and then Hyderabad and Hyderabad offshoots.
Sultan Hussain, ruler of Ahmednagar, and his queen Khanzada Humayun were great patrons of painting. The Tarif-e-Hussain Shahi, which was commissioned during his reign, sings praises of both the king and the queen. Sultan Murtaza Nizam Shahi I's reign in the late 16th century marks the high point of the development of painting in the Ahmednagar court. They have a deep spirituality, which was created in the paintings of the Deccan. We see portraits of the king made in a refreshing new spirit. Unlike the grand and formal portraits of the Mughal court, he is presented in an entirely unassuming and relaxed manner. Though he is a ruler, there is no sense of pomp and grandeur at all in these portraits. The cosmopolitan character of the Deccani court was reflected in the many influences that shaped the miniatures. Deccani artists used the Persian miniatures as models and adopted conventions such as the use of gold. The sense of fantasy in these paintings is heightened by the shimmering quality of the gold. Elements of Persian paintings and those from the indigenous tradition are held together by a brilliant poetry of the mind. Above all, the paintings are lyrical and graceful. The figures are tall and majestic, yet simple and graceful. They exude a mood of gentle nobility. What makes Deccani paintings extraordinary is something beyond technical perfection and poetic grace. These paintings achieve a heightened mood and atmosphere. Never do we get a glimpse of war or politics. Instead, there are images of lavish royal picnics, where we are invited to have an audience with the king. He sits on his throne listening to music, while all around him is the activity of laying out a sumptuous spread.
After the defeat of Vijayanagar, some painters possibly took shelter in some of the Deccani courts, and that's why you find Saraswati and other deities like this, which are almost done by a South Indian painter. And the background here or there, the tufts of grass or flowering plants here or there are in Persian tradition, but the others are in fact done according to the South Indian tradition of painting. So these sort of mixed styles which are emerging later on formed and gave strength to the entire group of Bijapuri paintings. Sometimes they may be rough, but they are nevertheless very powerful contribution of Indian painters to the whole scene of Indian painting.
The paintings of Bijapur transport us into an ethereal world. Here are dreamscapes. It is an enchanted land. The concern is not with photographic reality, but with an idealized beauty. Sultan Ali Adil Shah I was the first great patron of art in Bijapur. The Nujum al-Ulum, or the stars of science, a study of astrology and the magic of the universe, was illustrated during Ali Adil Shah I's reign. Ibrahim Adil Shah II stands out as one of the great and humane rulers in Indian history. Even while the north of India was ruled by Emperor Akbar, here in the south was another great philosopher king, Ibrahim Adil Shah II. While Akbar created his universal faith, Deen-e-Ilahi, at Fatehpur Sikri, here at Bijapur, Ibrahim also transcended the barriers of any one religion. In the words of Ibn Arabi, Sufi poet, "My heart has become the receptacle of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles and a convent for Christian monks, and a temple for idols and pilgrims, Kaaba. And the tablets of the Torah and the book of the Quran. I follow this religion of love whichever way its camels take, for this is my religion and my faith." In the manner of a Hindu ascetic, he wore a necklace made of Rudraksh beads through most of his life.
Among the greatest of the Indian patrons was Ibrahim Adil Shah II, who ruled from 1587 to 1627, a contemporary of Akbar and Jahangir. But in fact, in a way, he was a greater patron of Indian painting compared to these rulers, because they had certain protocols. Although Jahangir praised his painters, but no painter had the permission to sit, even come near to him. He may say he was a patron, but Ibrahim Adil Shah was a patron of a different class.
Unlike the contemporaneous Mughal paintings, which depicted the achievements and conquests of the rulers, The paintings commissioned by Ibrahim Adil Shah present a dreamlike world. We know very little about the Deccan Empire in terms of pure historiography, as the Deccan kings, unlike the Mughals, were not interested in precise histories. Songs composed by the king himself never mention military conquests. Instead, he sings of Hindu deities, Muslim saints, his favorite elephant Atish Khan, and his beloved musical instrument, the tambour, which he had named Moti Khan. Ibrahim describes himself as being the son of Ganesh and Saraswati. Ibrahim's entire reign is recorded in paintings as a series of moments of spiritual introspection. The king's figure is not one that instills fear or awe in us. Rather, we are drawn to this enigmatic and gentle human being who seems to be lost in a world of his own. Intense colors and visions of fantasy create a magical atmosphere in the works. The emphasis is not on realism, but rather on the creation of an ideal world in which we lose ourselves. The figures in these paintings are gentle. They exist in complete harmony with all that is around them. There are numerous paintings of Sufis, mystics, and ascetics. The Qutb Shahis founded the ruling dynasty of Golconda in 1512. The Qutb Shahis were deeply committed to retaining the roots of their Persian identity and culture. Artists migrated to the Deccan from Persia. Later, at the end of the century, Mughal artists trained under Persian masters also immigrated to the Deccan. Thus we see a heterogeneous style in Golconda paintings, reflecting influences from many sources. Sultan Muhammad Quli Qutb Shah is considered to be as great a patron of arts as his contemporary in Bijapur, Ibrahim Adil Shah II. The few paintings that survive from Muhammad Quli's reign are exquisite in their decorative beauty. Most are contained in a copy of the king's own poetry, the Kuliyat. The paintings in this lavish manuscript are typical of the Deccan taste for opulence and ornamentation. The surface glistens with gold and iridescent colors. The calligraphic elegance of the Persian Safavid style has been married to the brilliance and rhythm of the indigenous idiom. What is striking in the Golconda miniatures is the lack of violence and aggression. The grandeur of the royal court is conveyed through music, dance, and other pleasure-seeking activities rather than war. There is a very special sense of joyous fantasy in the early paintings of Golconda. In this, the early paintings of the Deccan are unique in the entire realm of art. In 1635, Golconda became a Mughal protectorate. It now came into direct contact with the many Mughal influences that were to shape the future course of Deccani miniature painting. With the increased influence of the Mughal court, portraits of Deccani rulers and noblemen began to take on the formality of the Mughal idiom. However, the unique essence of the Deccani idiom continues in these paintings. By the early 17th century, English and Dutch trading companies had established their strongholds in the Deccan. The Golconda artists found the Europeans to be enthusiastic patrons for local paintings. These were exported to Europe along with many other prized Deccani items such as textiles, spices and diamonds. Abul Hassan, who ruled over Golconda from 1672 to 1687, was nicknamed Tana Shah, or King of Taste. He is portrayed as a pleasure-loving man, charmed by the perfume of the sprig of flowers that he holds in his hand. Portraits of religious teachers and saints at Abul Hassan's court exude a gentle charm, faintly reminiscent of Bijapur miniatures. In the late 17th century, with the fall of Golconda and Bijapur to the armies of Aurangzeb, the art of painting in the Deccan declined. 1724 saw the emergence of the state of Hyderabad. This was a period of political and economic instability which continued throughout the 18th century. With the decline of Bijapur and Golconda, a style of painting emerged in Hyderabad which was very different in spirit from the earlier Deccani paintings. Mughal nobles and officials now settled in Hyderabad and ruled on behalf of the Emperor Aurangzeb. These nobles, filled with the importance of their newly acquired power, commissioned numerous portraits that reflected their grandeur and glory. The strong symmetry and formality are a departure from the dreamy mysticism of the earlier Deccani paintings. From the 18th century onwards, there is a marked emphasis on feminine themes. Princesses and courtesans appear in picture after picture. Since time immemorial, the Indian artist had used the female form to depict deities and to visualize philosophic and poetic ideas. Now there was a tendency towards superficial prettiness. In ancient times, the Deccan saw the most beautiful flowering of the art of painting in India at Ajanta. 1,000 years later, in the soil made fertile by the gentle thoughts of the Bhakti movement and the mystic dreams of the Sufis from Persia, the art of exquisite painting blossomed for 100 years in the Deccan. In the finest paintings that were made at Ahmednagar, Bijapur and Golconda in the 16th and 17th centuries, the artist's attention went far beyond the material concerns of the world. We see in these paintings the inward look and a great peace of the spirit. There is a magic distilled in the paintings of the Deccan which transports us into an enchanted reality. In later centuries, the spell was broken. In the meantime, myriad new influences came to the Deccan from faraway shores. The culture of the entire Indian subcontinent reeled under the impact of dominant new political and economic forces. Indian artists began to paint for new patrons, adapting their talents to new styles of painting that were created.